It's fair to say that the Atari VCS 800 has been slowing down in the last 8 to 9 months. We had a few really good years with the console, or at least I have, but things seem to be in a decline right now. For those that don't know, the VCS 800 is Atari's newest console. Their set-top box with its own ecosystem and storefront. There, you can purchase Atari and indie games. But lately it's been all indie games, and a little bit of retro stuff from people like Kraz Productions, with little to nothing from Atari themselves. So the question that I'm starting to see more and more is, what now? What will Atari do with the VCS? And I think there are a few possibilities for the Atari VCS platform moving into the future. So let's discuss the possibilities and the things that I've seen people discussing online as we look towards the future of the Atari VCS. So the main thing I see people wanting is a VCS2, a sort of upgraded system with better specs and performance. But if you ask me, there is little to no reason for this. The VCS, despite its loyal fan base and dedicated developers, has been a bit of a sore spot in Atari's portfolio, at least since Wade Rosen took over. The hardware has been a flawed mess right out of the box, and Atari, as it moves into its future, seems to be banking more and more on its past. The Plus line has been applauded and seems to be selling well for the company. So much so that it's allowing Atari to license popular titles from its past, such as Pac-Man, as well as developing games for one of the most beloved and underutilized systems in its portfolio, the Atari 7800 Pro system. This way they can sell cartridges in limited runs and make profit off of people's nostalgia and their need to collect physical items. The VCS used an all-digital platform that makes sense for today's day and age, except when talking about Atari's key demographic. Atari attracts people who are holding on to the way things used to be, and not all of them want the company to become modernized and digital. The sales and the products that are doing well for the company seems to support this statement. So, why then would Atari put out a VCS2? Developing new cutting-edge hardware is a game that is barely profitable for even the biggest players in the industry, outside of Nintendo. Most companies are selling consoles at cost or even at a financial loss for most of their system's life before actually turning a profit on any hardware. These companies instead rely on software to make money, and Atari doesn't have the resources to play this game. But I can already hear some comments being typed out. Atari doesn't need the most cutting-edge software. All they need is something good enough to play their biggest titles and support some of the modern game engines. Well, that's actually what they did with the original VCS, and it hasn't gone so well. Not to mention that they need to turn profits on hardware. So, anything that they put out will be priced as much as a Nintendo, Sony, or a Microsoft console. But the VCS botched almost everything that could be fumbled in its time on the market. Absolutely terrible marketing. Units not working straight out of the box, at least without a ton of research and patches being backdoored into the console. Server and payment issues causing customers not to be able to spend money on the storefront, and so much more. I could go on with the problems, but let's get to the point. When it comes to a VCS2, or a piece of modern hardware, I don't think it's something Atari needs to do. At least, not a traditional set-top box or console. Releasing a new console would take some engineering, research and development, and a large financial commitment, either directly from Atari or through crowdsourcing. It's just not a good idea, and I highly doubt we'll ever see a VCS2, at least in the traditional sense. I think it makes more sense to continue supporting the current console for as long as they can. There's no reason not to keep the servers up and games coming, even if it's just a trickle. They could do so for probably 2 to 5 years, especially if companies are willing to release stuff on the VCS. Now, I don't think the console will be officially killed off for quite some time, and I don't think Atari sees even the original VCS hardware as part of its future. Rather, I think it would be smart for them to use their storefront and plethora of titles as a vessel moving forward. Keep the original VCS going, but focus on the community and the software you have built, with some needed improvements. Let me explain.
What if these outfits come with pants? You know I've only got one brain cell, right? Atari? I didn't even know they were still around.
The VCS storefront has customers who already committed a fair amount of money into it. And there's no reason that they couldn't develop a piece of software that allows you to log into your VCS account on a computer or maybe even on an Android or mobile device. This way, they can sell their own titles and give indie devs a place to develop for outside of the likes of Steam and the Epic Game Store. But why would any developer want to do this? Why would people want yet another place to buy games? And why would people put their games on it? Well, first off, people have already bought games on the VCS storefront, so you have a bit of a following already. But on top of that, since it's a smaller, more curated collection, it's possible for developers to get their games noticed by Atari fans. Meaning, if they have something fun and unique that is right up the Atarians' alley, why not release it on the VCS storefront and garner a small but dedicated audience? Then, Atari could release their own stuff on the platform as well, making it maybe a little cheaper and have it come out a little earlier than Steam and on other home consoles. All the while giving their back catalog of games a digital home. That way they can make money on those as well. Making the Atari VCS an app just makes sense to me. And it's the direction that a lot of the big video game industry players want to go in. So, it's best to start now if you ask me. Atari still has the Plus line for collectors and for people wanting physical releases of retro stuff. They have that space covered already, with a system and series of games that seems to be successful, and still moving in the right direction. So, Atari doesn't need more unique hardware, just a sort of digital presence. That's not to say that the Atari VCS hardware wasn't a smart thing. If I were Atari, I would keep the VCS going, but I would also leave new hardware up to their relationships with companies like MyArcade. Have MyArcade put something out like the highly anticipated Atari Game Station Go, with the Atari VCS store front and center. Then, they can release it with a ton of retro games already unlocked and ready to play. But with the VCS ecosystem on the unit, it would drive further sales and let people expand their library beyond what was preloaded. I don't know what the logistics of having another company's hand on the hardware is, but I think they would be happy selling it at a profit and letting Atari put their software on the thing and update it. This would only drive further sales of units. Imagine a MyArcade VCS handheld, similar to what we've been waiting on since, well, this time last year. Tell me you want to play recharge games on the MyArcade Game Station Go, or Quamp 2 on it while you're sitting on the John. It all seems like a good idea to me. But there is, of course, one other option that we need to acknowledge when it comes to the future of the Atari VCS, and that's the idea that it will just go away. As I said, I don't see this happening for quite some time, at a minimum 2 years, but it is something that could eventually happen. Hopefully, if this does come to pass, we will be able to keep the games that we downloaded on the unit and play them into the future. I hate the idea of losing all my digital purchases. As I stated earlier, Atari hasn't put much focus or drive behind the VCS as a storefront, or as a console. So maybe they want to eventually let it die a quiet death, once it's no longer profitable at all and devs stop releasing games on it. But I can't help to feel that that would be such a waste. The Atari VCS fans are ravenous and super supportive of the hardware. There are forums and Facebook groups that are extremely active, and people are loving the experience. I see them constantly showing off what the system could do, and it really makes you wonder why Atari isn't milking it a bit more and getting all they can out of it. But I think we mostly know the answer to that anyway. Most of these fans on these forums and Facebook groups want dedicated consoles. But if I'm honest, I think they would support any future for the VCS, especially if the alternative is no future at all. But out of everything we've discussed, I think the most likely thing to happen is either the client going digital or going away entirely. After those options, the next most likely thing would be them handing off the hardware to a company like MyArcade to sell, while they put the software on it and drive sales. This would likely extend the life of the VCS somewhat, as they would want to continue releasing things to sell on the VCS client to new customers, as well as the old customers who have the original VCS hardware. But the least likely scenario in my mind is Atari making a follow-up console. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to hear. I just don't think Wade Rosen would let that happen, at least while he's running the show. Now, if somebody else comes into power and takes over the company, well, then I guess anything could be possible. But as Atari is set up today, I doubt we'll ever see a VCS2 console in the traditional form.
That'll keep them on their toes. Let's see what we can come up with next.
We're Atari. We have the vision, and we invented the technology to bring the excitement home to you.
You've all heard my thoughts and predictions for the future of the Atari VCS as a console and an app. So now I want to hear from all of you. Do you think the Atari VCS will get a follow-up system? Do you think it will become a digital client instead? Or do you think it'll be finished when the console is all over? If the VCS does become a digital storefront, will you support it? Why or why not? Let me know your thoughts on all this and whatever else you have to say about the VCS and its future in the comments down below. I look forward to reading them. And please, if you made it this far in the video, leave a like before you leave. It helps the channel and my videos so much more than you could ever know. Also, why not subscribe if you haven't already? I cover all things Atari here on the channel, from the VCS to the 2600, from the links to the plug-and-play stuff and everything in between. Alright guys, time to wrap up the video. I've been the 7800 Pro Gamer, a man who is going to support the VCS no matter what the future brings. And of course, I'll cover it on the Atari network for you all to watch. And I'd like to thank you all for watching. And as always, remember to stay classy, Atarians.